Welcome. These are our top stories this evening. Turkana Governor Josphat Nanok has been elected as the new chairman of the Council of Governors, taking over from his Meru counterpart, Peter Munya. During the full council elections, Taita Taveta Governor John Murutu was voted back as vice chair, while Kiambu Governor William Kabogo was elected the Council of Governors chief whip. But as Murimi Mwangi now reports, Nanok and his team already have a full entree, beginning with the push for Parliament to pass the Division of Revenue Bill, which is critical for county operations in the coming financial year.
The team joins here.
As Turkana Governor Josphat Nanok took up the instruments of power as the incoming chair for the Council of Governors, a heavy burden hanging over the 47 county governments did not escape the mind of his predecessor, Meru Governor Peter Munya.
The county governments might go into the new financial year without their budgets in place, hence stagnating development and ultimately leading to chaotic transition process.
And it has all to do with a prevailing standoff between the National Assembly and the Senate over the 2017-2018 Division of Revenue Bill, over a suggested additional 29 billion shillings to the counties. A dispute occasioned by the Senate's suggestion to increase the allocations to county governments from 323 billion, suggested by the National Assembly, to 352 billion. An attempt to resolve the standoff through a mediation committee flopped, resulting in the republication of the bill for fresh debate.
We are therefore urging Parliament to treat this issue with the utmost urgency that it deserves. The mediation period elapsed on April 30, 2017, the bill having been forwarded to the mediation team on March 31, 2017.
The money which has been released to counties is not enough. The national government is holding a lot of money. The Ministry of Health have a lot of money. They can afford to buy a container and go to the mobile clinic. A container for 10 million shillings.
National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi recently advised the Budget Committee to consult with the Senate Finance Committee in a rather unusual step to iron out the standoff. And with only a month to the end of this financial year, Governor Nanok, it appears, has his work cut out.
I do promise to do all that is within my powers to push the devolution agenda forward. I'm going to closely work with all the stakeholders in devolution. I have seen the benefits in partnerships and understand that they enable us amplify our effectiveness.
Agriculture is devolved. We would like you to really promote agriculture because our country cannot feed its own citizens. We cannot feed our own people. It does not make sense. You can have your railway, you can have your oil.
During the meeting, Taita Taveta Governor John Murutu was re-elected as the Council of Governors Vice Chair, while Kiambu Governor William Kabogo was picked as the council's chief whip. Officials who recouped their seats in the August general election will retain their slots at the council. But fresh elections will be held to fill the posts of those who lose their gubernatorial seats during the August 8th polls. Murimi Mwangi, KTN News.
And the newly elected chair of the Council of Governors, that's Governor Josphat Nanok, will be joining me in just a few minutes. We will be having that discussion with him on just where devolution is headed after its first term, going into a new election, what his mandate is. And of course, we will be touching on the issues of food prices in the country. Remember, agriculture is a devolved function, in line with the conversation we've been having all evening on Kivumbi 2017. So please do stay tuned for that conversation between myself and Governor Josphat Nanok, the new chair of the Council of Governors. That's coming your way in just a few minutes. But first, the Orange Democratic Movement has presented 65,000 signatures to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
Tumeleta zile sahihi ambazo zilikuwa zinahitajika kutoka kaunti 24, tumeongezea hata kidogo kufikia counties 27 tu ile ya kuongezea, kwa sababu tukiangalia kama mwenye kufanya hesabu wakiangalia kwa haraka kaunti 27, kaunti hata tukichukua zile kaunti 24 na kwa 2000 inatufikisha zaidi ya ile namba ambayo inahitajika. Lakini sisi wenyewe tukiangalia yote kwa mjumla tuko karibu ya hesabu ambayo inafikisha 65,000.
The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has moved to the Supreme Court seeking an advisory opinion on Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity in relation to clearance of persons for public office for elective and nominative slots.
I have a petition in the High Court, which is alive in the High Court, which touches on the same matter, and which would be compromised by these proceedings.
With the same parties?
No, not with the same parties, but they are raising the same subject matter.
In fact, it would have been better if it could be heard even earlier, so that the vetting agencies have the opportunity of the benefit of the Supreme Court's decision. Of course, they are assumed to know what the Constitution says, but it would help if they would have that clarity from.
The applicant has 14 days to serve their submissions both on the PO and the main advisory, and serve the interested parties, who shall also have 14 days within which to respond.
The political race for Mombasa governorship is fast shaping up, and today Senator Hassan Omar Hassan unveiled his running mate in a colourful ceremony held in Mombasa. Linda Mariwa Shuma, a hotelier and a business lady, will deputise Omar in what promises to be a grueling test for supremacy. KTN's Coast reporter Francis Ontomwa attended the ceremony and now reports.
It gives me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, the people of Mombasa, to introduce to you Linda Mariwa Shuma, our next Deputy Governor of Mombasa.
Mary and more Mary will follow the unveiling of Wiper candidate Hassan Omar's running mate for the Mombasa governorship race. Supporters came in huge droves to witness the announcement of 39-year-old Linda Mariwa Shuma, a mother of one who says she's daring enough to ditch her trade in community-based organizations for politics.
This is what I envision for Mombasa. A Mombasa in which all the citizenry has access to quality and affordable health care. We must all be able to access medical treatment without a struggle.
Several years of working with women and girls empowerment programs, some pundits agree that she could make a perfect pair with Omar, who has largely lived his life in human rights activism.
It will give me great pleasure to see that Mombasa achieves the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6 of ensuring availability of clean water and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all.
Aside from Omar, top contenders for the Mombasa race include businessman Suleiman Shabal, running on a Jubilee ticket, and former Nyali Member of Parliament Awiti Bolo, gunning the seat on a vibrant Democratic Party. The trio will be out to unseat Governor Hassan Ali Joho, who fell out with his Deputy Governor Hazel Katana. Insiders say he will unveil his running mate Thursday.
Ukiona mahali maandamano, harakati ya kisiasa, harakati yoyote kuna kina mama ndani yake, know that that movement is real.
Senator Omar says he's in the race to save the sinking fortunes of Kenya's second largest city.
Kama vile tuko na kina mama ndani ya harakati yetu kimsingi ya Mombasa, then you have to realize that this movement is real. Hakuna mtu katika Mombasa hii ambaye hajachokeshwa na uongozi wa Mombasa.
Mabadiliko yenyewe yatakuja kutokana na sisi kumchagua Hassan Omar Hassan Sarai kama gavana wa pili wa jimbo hili la Mombasa.
Some of the factors that will inform the choice of running mates include the quest to strike regional balance and gender representation.
I do not expect Hassan Sarai kuwa amechagua mama iwe kama ile pande nyingine ilivyokuwa. We don't want the mother to be a flower girl. We want the mother to be given the instruments of power as a deputy governor to be able to deliver for the people of Mombasa.
Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
All right, and of course that is coming from the county of Mombasa. Speaking of devolution, we had told you earlier about that full council meeting that was held by the Council of Governors today here in Nairobi, held their elections, and I'm so glad to be joined by the new chair of the Council of Governors, Governor Josephat Nanok from Turkana County. Thank you for joining us tonight, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Once again on winning. But you definitely have a full in-tray. So let's talk about the most pressing issue, which is funds and the division of revenue bill that is before the House. We saw your predecessor just speaking about it this afternoon. Speak to us about this challenge and how you hope to take this up and how this is affecting operations at the county level.
Thank you so much, and to be invited here as the first time I'm addressing the Kenyan public as the third chair of the Council of Governors. Indeed, as you are well aware that every end of financial year, Parliament comes to discuss the division of revenue bill, which informs the county allocation of revenue bill that allows counties to begin the process of discussing their budgets and having them approved through the county assembly. Indeed, for this particular year, which is the year of election, these discussions on the division of revenue bills were being brought forward. So essentially, there were disagreements in Parliament over an amount that had been allocated for additional roads that the Transition Authority had transferred to counties, which is a total of 8,113 kilometers of roads. And both Treasury and the task force and IBEC recommended 8.43 billion to be transferred to counties from the Ministry of Roads, along with additional funds for managing libraries that county governments were already managing. And so the disagreements have been between the two houses of Parliament, and on 31st March, Parliament put up a mediation process, and the mediation period is already over on 30th April. And so we're waiting because counties are not able to do the budgets.
And you're talking about borrowing, in lieu of this money, but this is not a problem unique to this financial year, even with an election coming up. I mean, I think, the issue of division of revenue and how much money comes to the counties has been a perennial one, if you like, from 2013. How do you propose to sort of change this relationship between the two houses of Parliament to enable, faster release and transfer of funds?
You realize this is a year of transition, the same as 2013 when we came in and we found that we had no budgets to run new governments. So essentially what we are doing and what the urgency of this matter now is for Parliament to be able to conclude this so that county government can be able to put approved budgets so that new administrations coming in after elections do not have a crisis of beginning, so that the service delivery isn't affected. One of my first tasks will be to try and reach out to both houses and ask them to pass this bill and give counties the money that they deserve to do the additional roads out in the rural areas.
Okay, so some reaching out to both houses. Governor, we'd like to talk about a big issue in the country right now and a big issue that KTN News is covering, and that is the high cost of food prices in the country. As we all know, agriculture is a devolved function. We've been speaking to the people, we've been speaking to pundits, and they all say that, the allocation at the county level isn't what it should be. There's also been the question that where has the county government been in terms of speaking out on this issue, seeing as this is a function that falls directly under your ambit?
I think if you realize from the time we began the Council of Governors and county governments became operational, we've been so vocal on the issue of agriculture and the fact that it's been a devolved funds. And we've been asking for a lot of money that is being held up by authorities that are under national government to be devolved to counties to enable us be able to do a lot more of agriculture and irrigation. But then you realize there have been disconnect between the two levels of government.
But there's also been conversations about the allocations that counties are putting into agriculture, that you prefer, the bigger, fancier projects like infrastructure, as opposed to putting more into agriculture, into ensuring outputs, are optimum, and people are planting the sort of right foods for the right areas, and even in terms of mitigation of drought.
Essentially, for all counties, you'll realize budgets have been balanced out. Because even in agricultural producing areas, the infrastructure had been so critical to move the goods to markets. So there have been a balance of putting money into infrastructure and, of course, putting money into agriculture. And as we move to the next 5 years of new administrations of county government, we will be seeing more of value addition and more of money going into food security as opposed to infrastructure.
Okay, I'd like to talk about funds for a moment. The Auditor General reports from the financial year 2013-2014 talking about unaccountability of funds on the part of the county governments, not necessarily embezzlement, but even in terms of capacity in accounting procedures, in audit procedures. I mean, we did 47 days of accountability, taking a look at how the counties are managing the whole audit process. Even having an audit committee, not many counties have been able to do this. Could you speak to the issue of accountability of funds that come to the county governments, and whether this will be any different under your tenure?
Indeed, the expenditure of funds that each of the 47 counties have been receiving are done within the regulations that are available in the law and is guided by the law. But of course, we've had challenges being the pioneer county governments that are setting structures and systems for the first time. And each county has its own unique circumstances. And the fact that a majority of the staff came from different areas. I think a lot of them were carried over from national government, others came from local authority, but others were employed outside government. So indeed, I want to agree that this is a challenge, and
but have you been able to build capacity over this? Will we see something new with devolution the second round?
There has been a lot of improvements now, and I believe that as we go to the second term for county governments, that there will be a lot more improvements, because things keep changing. Even systems like IFMIS that were meant to be a solution to financial accountability are breaking every now and then because of connectivity problems. And we think that as we go into the second phase, both the county governments and the national governments and oversight institutions should be able to sit down and relook at how we can be able to solve some of the perennial problems we've witnessed over the last 4 years.
Governor, you are a politician as well, and we are in political season. I'd like to talk about the relationship between the county governments and the national government. In particular, the relationship between yourself and the president. We saw quite a bit of an exchange when he came over to your county. What's that relationship like now, if you're able to tell us about it? And what do you think can be done to improve the relationship between the county governments and the national government?
There are two things here. There is Nanok, the governor, and Nanok, the politician, but also Nanok, the chair of the Council of Governors. One of the things that institutions that have actually stood the test of time and stayed above politics is the Council of Governors. Because when we began 4 years ago, we agreed that we are sitting here as the Council of Governors and not political parties. And we've driven that process forward in that spirit. And this is the same spirit I'm going to be driving it. As a
politician?
My position as a politician and the governor of Turkana, I would rather discuss that on another time when we were discussing specifically that matter.
All right, very diplomatic from the chair of the Council of Governors. Thank you very much for granting us the opportunity to speak to the nation, right after being elected the chair of the Council of Governors. And we wish you all the best as you continue with that. All right, so we were speaking to Governor Josphat Nanok. He's the governor of Turkana County. He's the new chair of the Council of Governors, talking about fostering the relationship between the national and the county governments. Well, let me remind you that he's been diplomatic tonight and not talked politics, but we will definitely be talking politics, especially the politics of Unga. At 10 p.m., Joe Ageo will be hosting Senators Beatrice Elachi and Moses Kajwang on the politics of food, the politics of Unga, and who between NASA and Jubilee has a master plan for food security in this country. That is all coming up in just a short while from now. But let's take a short break